Welcome to this week's episode of Jonathan on Money. This is episode number 139. This episode should be dropping on Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to all those who are celebrating. Before jumping into this presentation, I do have a special announcement, which is I'm thrilled to announce that the launch of my very first book, which is D is for Diversification, the ABCs of Personal Finance, and it's available on Amazon or at www.jonathanonmoney.com just in time for the holiday season. This book is a fun way to plant seeds of financial literacy, perfect for a family with young kids or anyone brushing up on the basics, and a memorable gift that helps raise money smart kids. Your support means the world, and if you enjoy it, I'd be grateful for a 5-star review on Amazon. Speaking of support, a big Hanukkah shout out to Eitan Blechman, who's apparently also goes by ETH. He's from Chicago, Illinois. Chicago's a great city. Unfortunately, you have a very schwach mayor. Eitan has given this podcast a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, so kol hakavod to him. Remember, by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a positive comment, it helps others find this podcast and spreads financial literacy. So, yes, if you, who I'm talking to, you listening to this, if you can give this podcast a 5-star review, I'll greatly appreciate it, and let me know when you do it so I can give you a shout out in a future episode. Also, before jumping to this week's episode, I'd like to share that my upcoming fall live webinar series will continue on Thursday, December 18th at 8:30 a.m. featuring K. Eli Akavan, a partner at the law firm Grant Herman, Schwartz and Klinger based in New York. Eli's going to be speaking on asset protection and personal guarantees, and I'm going to be sure to include the registration information in the show notes of this episode. Okay, now for today's agenda. My talking points this week will discuss the fact that Frum community has a spending problem, and it's not what you think. Our quote this week is from Jerry Rice on doing what others won't. I'll spend the last half of the episode answering listener questions, including thoughts on a Chosson gift. And finally, we'll end with an actual idea to implement your investing life, where we're going to discuss year-end charitable giving strategies. With that, let's jump into this week's talking points. So the Frum community talks a lot about money. We bemoan our high expenses like kosher food, yeshiva tuition, and mortgage payments. We call out the luxuries turned social norms that drive far too many to spend beyond their means. We also allot plenty of airtime to saving and investing for our financial future. What's often lost in the conversation is the importance of discretionary spending. This is money spent on wants rather than needs, non-essential goods and services like dining out, entertainment, vacations, and other experiences that are not necessary but may enhance your life. Not every family is fortunate to have extra dollars to spend on non-essential items. Many individuals in our community are just getting by. There are other families, though, who I frequently come across who do have more than enough. The problem is they hear all the warnings and are afraid to spend. They hoard their extra money, saving as much as they can to pass along to their kids or to feel more financially secure by having way more in the bank than they actually need. I try to remind my clients, money's a tool, not a scorecard. You don't win an award for being the richest person in the graveyard. Plus, leaving too much money to your kids will likely cause them more harm than good. Despite these realities, it's still a psychological hurdle for many folks to be able to spend their hard-earned money to enhance their lives. I'm going to share a few suggestions that may help if you struggle to spend your discretionary money in a guilt-free way. First, spend with the end in mind. A good first step to help folks overcome their reluctance to spend is to assure them that they're on track to achieve their financial goals. Meeting with your financial advisor to clearly define your lifestyle goals and running the numbers to determine if you're on track to meet them can help ease stress around splurging on fun items or experiences from time to time. Once a family understands that they can send their kids to yeshiva, afford kosher food, pay for various simchas, and save for retirement, they may be more inclined to spend their discretionary funds more freely. Next, for retirees, provide a monthly portfolio paycheck. A key component of ensuring that a retiree won't run out of money and can also leave a legacy if desired is to establish a safe withdrawal rate. That is the amount of money a person can spend annually without risking running out of funds in retirement. A common rule of thumb suggests that withdrawing 4% of a portfolio's balance annually will prevent families from depleting their assets. Although this is a reasonable starting point, an individual's true safe withdrawal rate will depend on a variety of factors, including age, health, level of assets, and expected investment returns. Once a realistic percentage is determined, an individual's account can be set up automatically to withdraw that amount monthly, essentially providing a paycheck. The consistency and certainty of receiving a regular income similar to when he or she was working brings peace of mind and helps mitigate the spending anxiety. Sorry about that. If the safe withdrawal rate is calculated prudently, the probability of outliving one's funds should be very low, and the family can spend some of that monthly paycheck on more enjoyable activities beyond just expenses. Next is setting dates on bucket list items. A bucket list is an itemized agenda of experiences or achievements that a person would like to accomplish during his or her life. A wish list of items with no set dates for achieving them, however, likely will remain just a wish. I encourage my clients to include dates by which they would like to accomplish their goals. This helps motivate families to reach these specific milestones. Furthermore, if the clients are amenable, jotting down a more specific action plan for how and when they will accomplish each item on their list may offer further encouragement. For example, if clients' dream is to drive across the country in an RV, they should indicate when they plan to purchase the RV and put together an itinerary with the dates that they'll stay in each location. This will help ensure that clients are prepared to achieve these objectives. Goals with no timeline are easier to put off and can lead to the hoarding of more assets instead of enjoying them. Another thought is to remember no one knows what the future holds. Everybody listening to this knows that life throws the occasional curveball. This may include unexpected illness, premature death, familial turbulence, or financial disruptions. Not every unexpected life twist is negative. Even a positive development like big job promotion can usher a new phase of additional responsibility or more chaotic life. The point is that nobody has any guarantee of how their life will play out. This is why I encourage people to do things and to spend money while they can. If you want to go on that exotic trip and could afford it, then you should go. If you want to dedicate a new Torah to your shul, then do it. If you want to take your entire family away to a Pesach program this year, then go for it. I embrace the do things while you can lesson years ago. A year after I got married, I dreamed up a grand trip with stops in Paris, Beijing, and Thailand. And at the time, we had no children, ample vacation days, and not many financial obligations, other than renting a small apartment in the Bronx and saving for retirement. When some friends heard about this trip, they wondered why I was planning such an exotic getaway at that stage of life. They said this was really a trip to save for retirement. My wife and I ended up going on the trip, and it was truly a once in a lifetime experience. It was unique not only because of what we saw and what we did, but it was a point in life that gave us the flexibility, financially and otherwise, to embrace the adventure. The thought of doing a trip like that today is laughable. Between work and family obligations, a trip like that can never happen. I could have taken my friend's advice and waited to go on this trip during retirement, but I don't know what host of other obligations or challenges I may face that could prevent such an opportunity. Seize the opportunity to spend money to do things while you can. No one knows what the future holds. And here's a final thought. A prevailing mindset among many investors is that they should continue indefinitely down the same financial path that allows them to build their wealth. This includes saving, investing, every extra penny that isn't needed for expenses. Additionally, not every family is fortunate to have extra dollars to spend on non essential items. Many individuals in our community are just getting by. I'd like to challenge this approach. Making the most of one's money requires balancing spending on your current needs, saving for your future, and using any excess funds to elevate the quality of your life through creating meaningful experiences for you and your family. My bracha or blessing to all listeners is that they should be zocha to have some extra funds every year after expenses and wisely use them to spark joy in their lives and the lives of their loved ones. Okay, those are the talking points this week. And as a reminder, you can be notified of my recent articles, webinars, and all the work I put out by subscribing to my free monthly newsletter at parkbridgewealth.com/newsletter. This week's quote is from Jerry Rice. For those who don't know, Jerry Rice is widely regarded as the greatest wide receiver in NFL history. Playing primarily for the San Francisco 49ers from 1985 to 2000, he won 3 Super Bowls and set records for career receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Known for his unmatched work ethic, precise route running, and consistency, Rice also played for the Oakland Raiders and Seattle Seahawks before retiring in 2005. He was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2010. He remains a symbol of excellence, discipline, and longevity in professional football. And Rice once said, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." This quote points to the age-old philosophy of working hard and making sacrifices today so you can reap the rewards later. This is obviously true with sports, where hard work and practice will show up with good results on the field and lead to money, fame, and opportunities if you're a professional. This is also true with one's career, where focusing on hard work and grinding will help position you for a great career trajectory, the ability to make a good living, and leading a comfortable life while also being respected. And from a money perspective, saving, investing consistently builds long-term advantage, since you'll develop a large nest egg, so you have the option of retiring or cutting back in the future. You may also have other opportunities that folks who didn't save and invest throughout their career may not have. This relates to philanthropy, providing for your children, and other lifestyle advantages or perks. Remember, put in the work now so you can enjoy the rewards later. Okay, now let's jump into this week's financial questions. And if you do have a question, feel free to submit it to me, and it may be answered in a future episode. Okay, first question. If you advocate diversifying investments, shouldn't investors also diversify financial institutions where they do business? Probably not. That's not diversification. That's generally just a mess. The exception is if you do your checking at one institution, you're investing at another institution, and have your 401k at a third institution. That's something I'm not saying is necessary, but it's understandable when it happens. Every financial institution should have access to the same investment products at this point, and all institutions, the best investments are the same boring ones. The key is having someone guide you so you're making sensible decisions and have an overall strategy that is appropriate for your needs. If you spread your funds across multiple different reputable financial firms, you're creating a mess for yourself and your loved ones. Mistakes will inevitably be made, and it will be a huge headache. A good rule of thumb is personal finances to keep your funds as consolidated as possible. Next question. Given the astronomical cost of college, can I start a 529 college savings account before I have kids? I want to maximize the full benefits for my kids. Technically, you can open an account and have another related beneficiary like your wife or yourself listed, and then change the beneficiary to a child once you have a child. However, this makes little sense in my opinion. I would sooner focus on more tangible goals like retirement, growing your nest egg, etc. Also, you can never maximize the full benefit, since you and your partner or wife can open 529 accounts separately in each state for an infinite amount of beneficiaries and max it out. You're talking about an unlimited amount of funds. There's also the issue of the landscape for higher education evolving. Not everyone wants to spend a tush load of money, take out mounds of debt to learn theoretical concepts not practical in the real world, all while being exposed and threatened by anti-Semitic socialist nutjobs and professional protesters. Your kids may not go to college, or may get a full ride, or may find a more effective way of educating themselves and establishing a career. I always caution folks about overdoing it with 529 accounts. There are far more important uses for your funds. Next question. My daughter is getting hot and heavy with a boy. Things are progressing, and during a casual conversation, this young man mentioned how all his friends receive Rolexes as their Chosson gift. I can't afford a Rolex. What advice would you give? First, what's a Chosson gift? Isn't your daughter enough of a gift? Maybe that's an old school approach, or just a Jonathan Shenkman approach, but some of these wedding requirements, quote unquote, are absurd. No snot-nosed kid who has accomplished nothing and earned no money is entitled to a Rolex. Save your funds and use it for the actual wedding and/or to help the young couple get their life started. If Junior wants to blow thousands of dollars on a watch to artificially inflate his self-worth, it's advisable to wait until has the discretionary funds to purchase a watch himself. Most people don't have the level of income to blow thousands of dollars on a watch. If he is unaware of this reality, then it's worth pointing out sooner rather than later. Perhaps you should have your daughter communicate this so it doesn't sound so harsh. I imagine some listeners may get triggered by this response, but it's the truth. Okay, next question. What are the tax implications to getting paid income for the rest of my life by buying an annuity? So annuity payments are typically taxed as ordinary income. This is different from the more favorable capital gains tax on some investments in one's taxable account. There are a few annuities that are still worth that trade-off, namely a SPIA, or single premium immediate annuity, is a nice way in today's world to create a pension where the owner gets a guaranteed stream of income for the rest of their life, with the trade-off being that you give up a lump sum of money to an insurance company. The benefits are you will never need to worry about running out of money and can take more risk with part of your portfolio. The downside is you give up those funds, they are tax inefficient, and you will likely earn higher returns in a properly structured portfolio. There are trade offs with every investment decision. Nothing's perfect. The key is appreciating the trade offs and making the best decision for your personal circumstances. Okay, last question for this week is I have a universal life policy through my employer where they pay some of my premiums. I'm moving employers. Can I take this with me? What are the cost ramifications? This sounds like a split dollar policy. One thing to consider is how much you would need to pay to continue this policy when you move. You also need to look up if you can actually take it with you. Reaching out to HR to discuss this would be sensible. The Shyla is if it's actually worth taking with you. It's probably expensive, and if you already have adequate life insurance coverage, continuing to pay for this policy may not be worth the ongoing cost. Perhaps you can try to cash out. In reality, your employer got suckered into buying this nonsense thinking it was a good idea, which it probably wasn't. They wasted a lot of money that could have been spent on a more sensible financial arrangement. Too bad, too sad. Okay, that's it for financial questions this week. And by the way, if you have a more involved personal finance situation, feel free to reach out directly to me. Perhaps my team and I can help you. The best way to get a hold of me is via email at jonathan@parkbridgewealth.com. And finally, I'd like to end with a timely and actual idea that listeners can implement to their own financial lives. And today's timely idea is going to focus on charitable giving before year end. When it comes to giving charity, there are a myriad of creative options this year, and I'm going to cover a few of them. First, consider front loading charitable gifts. The reason for this is starting in 2026, the new tax law will set a minimum threshold that an individual taxpayer's charitable contributions must exceed in order for that taxpayers to get any tax benefit from claiming them as itemized deductions. That threshold is 0.5% of an individual's AGI. This means that if an individual's taxpayer's contribution base is $1 million and they itemize their deductions, that taxpayer receives no benefit for the first $5,000 contributed to charity. Therefore, an individual taxpayer who itemizes in 2025, this year, will generally still have their charitable contributions count beginning with the first dollar donated. For individual taxpayers for whom the 0.5% threshold is a concern, they may want to consider front loading their contributions in 2025 rather than waiting until 2026. Building on that point, consider utilizing a donor advised fund or a DAF. A DAF is an account where you can deposit assets for donation and charity over time. The donor gets an immediate tax deduction when making the contribution to the DAF and can still control how the funds are invested and distributed to charity. A DAF can be extremely useful if you hold a security with no cost basis, a highly appreciated stock, or a concentrated in position. In all of these scenarios, the tax liability can be circumvented by moving that position to a DAF. DAFs are also useful when bunching your charitable contributions, which involves donating several years' worth of charitable dollars all at once. Contributions to charity are only tax deductible to those who itemize their deductions. This year, the standard deduction is $15,750 for single filers and $31,500 for married couples filing jointly. To help your itemized deductions exceed the standard deduction amount, one can bunch multiple years' worth of charitable donations. This allows the donor to exceed the standard deduction, take the itemized deduction, and still distribute the funds over the current and subsequent years. And one final idea regarding charity, which is donate appreciated stocks. And this is especially relevant in 2025 since stocks skyrocketed in many areas of the market. It may also apply if you have concentrated stock positions with large unrealized capital gains or large stock position that you want to trim to de-risk your portfolio. For these scenarios, consider donating these highly appreciated securities directly to charity, which helps avoid paying capital gains tax. And with that, it's a wrap for this week's show. Any comments or questions, feel free to reach out directly to me via email. I love hearing from my listeners. And finally, the secret to financial success is no secret at all. It's to spend less than you make, invest the difference prudently, and ignore all the noise. See you next time on Jonathan on Money.